Advance Wars is a series that needs little to no introduction, really. Kinda. It's one of Nintendo's sleeper hit series, well loved by fans, but not really that well known to a degree like others are. Honestly, as a surface level analysis, it's just an elaborate game of chess, with army units instead of pawns and bishops and all that. But there is a little more to it than you think. And without further ado, let's get into it. The first game isn't that complex for the most part. Each commander has passives and a certain ability called CO powers that make them stand out. Whether that ability is good or bad is up for debate depending on who it is and where you're fighting. Basically situational. Andy is more about staying alive, Max is more about doing more damage, Eagle is your air commander, Sonya can see through fog, Olaf like snow. Yeah, not everyone's made equal. But part of that is what I enjoy. Even if a situation seems unwinnable, there's at least a 1% chance, unless you screw yourself over, and that's a chance to learn from your mistakes. Trust me, learning is part of the fun. You're talking to the guy who took 80 plus days on stream, mind you, in one of the Drake missions. And I took that as a chance to learn how to get 1% better. Even if you play wrong, I use that in big quotes, you can still enjoy this game. I even got into how the game plays. But that kind of varies too. In the campaign itself, you either have pre-deployed units on the field or an empty field, where your means of surviving is capturing buildings and creating new dudes to keep your base defended. You can have foot soldiers, slightly stronger foot soldiers, tanks, rocket strikes, copters with guns, battleships, subs, bomber planes, and so much more. Each with their own advantages and disadvantages in the unit itself, and with who you play with. Unless you're someone like Sturm, then you just win. It's not fair at all. Honestly, the worst thing I could say about the original Advance Wars is the story itself. Because it's not really that great. It's just basic misunderstanding. Honestly, the characters surrounding it are lovable goofs to tragic anti-heroes to competent, sometimes threatening leaders. But, I mean, just the way that everything plays out kinda irks me. But I guess you have to make it a little simple, especially when your audience is younger. Even so, I don't feel that demeans anything. I admire the game being one where where it's not afraid to go into war. This is prevalent in the other games, but we have to start somewhere. Honestly, there's not much for me to say because it's very basic. You play the campaign, there's extra side modes, you just learn to get better and improve your high score. It's got a lot of replay value. And as a beginner's tactics game, it does its job very well when just knowing the basics. But if you want to go into more advanced strategies, it's actually more friendly than something like Fire Emblem, where you have to have a majors in statistics and a doctorate in theoretical physics. Overall, Advance Wars is a game that takes the idea of fighting in a war and makes it interesting and not a complete drama fest. Advance Wars 2, on the other hand, is everything I feel a sequel should be. It takes what worked before and improves it exponentially, so much that I feel it overshadows the original. First of all, the story is so much better. This time, instead of a misunderstanding, the game unites everything and everyone against a united threat. This being Black Hole, the same group in the subtitle of the game. Various members attack different nations as you play as each CO, or even a combination of them, giving each character more of a highlight or exploit their weaknesses, teaching you how to overcome them a little bit, which is a great way to get you to experience the game. It's such a better structure than just playing as a small ensemble or, just going through with Andy the entire time. Honestly, this has a lot more memorable missions, and I feel they have some of my favorite in the series. A couple of them including missions like Tanks, Toy Box, 2-Week Test, Sensei's Return, Duty and Honor, Sea Fortress, and Sinking Feeling, to name a few. Some of these introducing the new COs in the mix. My personal picks of favorites being Colin and Sensei, just because they have the right amount of dickhead energy to win any game in the right situation. but each character gets their own abilities enhanced or changed around, which helps formulate different strategies within the game, and, even helps some of the old COs hold a candle to the new guys. Some are better and some are worse, of course. Because, see, in Advance Wars 2, CO powers are different. You have a normal power and a superpower. One is just a stronger version of the other most of the time. But sometimes it can range from something like simple buffs to a pre-existing ability to something drastically different. COs like Eagle have a great superpower, but a terrible normal power. Other COs have powers that are just equal or bad, like Flag, who has a luck ability that's kind of like Nell, but it's a lot worse. Then you have people like Colin and Hachi who just use money and win. Just throw coins to the wind. And then you have people like Hawk who take 10 million years to charge up his best power. And it's really good when used. But aside from CO powers, the different units and mechanics introduced help shake up the gameplay a little bit. The only new unit, I guess, being a Neo tank, which is just a bigger tank than all the rest. Which is weird, because writing this I thought there were more, but there's also new pipes. These are laid about certain maps and block yourself and opponents, acting as breakable barriers and certain choke points for missions throughout the game. Another new addition is missile silos. These seemed a bit inconsequential at first, but if you use these, they can turn the tides, or at least have the AI retreat or group together their units, leading to some big strategic turns that can make the battle go in your favor. The final big, and I mean a big addition, being the black weapons. There's the black cannons, which are massive and have a big range. These things can really screw you over if you're not careful. Smaller versions of these exist too, and honestly, they're less threatening once you get used to them, but can really throw you for a loop in different maps. And then my biggest enemy, the factories. These are giant facilities that spawn enemies generally in pairs of 3, and if these go unchecked, you can kiss your run goodbye, because the enemy will kick your ass so hard, you'll actually forget what an airport is. Anyways, factories suck. Maybe I'm just bad, but these things give me so much trouble, it's not even, fair. Come on. Though, given all the game has to offer, it gives you more maps, more characters, more challenges, a little bit more of everything. It just does what Advance Wars 1 did, but better. Shoot, even the COs I didn't really appreciate or play as much are just better. People like Sonya, who I didn't really touch in the last game, are actually kinda solid. People like Kanbei, I actually have a blast using. It's they're so much fun. This game, I really feel, is just peak Advance Wars through and through. And I don't think there's any other way to really describe it. Moving on from here, I have a lot more to say about, honestly, the most divisive Advance Wars game, I feel. Dual Strike. From what I've seen, there's some people who love it and some who hate it. And of course there's those losers who don't choose and stay neutral green. Oh, wait, no, that works in Fire Emblem. Damn it, that doesn't work. Honestly, I like Dual Strike. With a couple asterisks. One, the campaign took away a lot of the nuance of the last, especially with what the second game had. The writing and structure of the plot do take a big nosedive for the most part. I really couldn't stand it. It just seemed way too simple in a lot of areas. But I still find combat, for the most part, pretty fun. It sticks with being a bit of the same, which isn't a problem in itself. It it again is just the last game with a couple extra pieces. Which is fine, but I can understand if someone says that this doesn't feel new. As for what this game adds, firstly and kind of least importantly, comm towers. Comm towers essentially steal the design of Superfly and boost your attack and defense when captured. So they become an additional choke point that can help turn the tide of battle if used properly. Even for COs that don't use them to their advantage, which there's only one, but we'll get to that later, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Not to mention, some of the new units are interesting, in my opinion. But a lot of them are kind of bad, I feel. And the pipe runners are a pain to fight with. Horribly managed when used. Mega tanks kind of explain themselves. You know, you could just use a Neo tank or just use a medium tank. I mean, it's all the same thing at that point. Mega tanks just have higher firepower and resistance, I'm pretty sure, but slower movement. But I have a lot more to say in terms of pipe runners. These things, when you use them, serve little to no purpose, being a moving artillery, but only on pipes. The terrain that the game gives you doesn't... A type of terrain that the game doesn't give much screen time to. Not only that, but as far as I'm concerned, you have to be near the entrance of a pipe scene. And specifically there in order to move them. You can't just move them from the middle of a pipe and just expect them to latch on. They're essentially sitting ducks. This I learned the hard way, because the game doesn't really mention it to you. They're just like, oh yeah, hey, this new unit that runs on pipes. Here you go. It's a little annoying for a unit that's essentially a moving artillery, but on a different terrain. Pipes aside, I find aircraft carriers just okay. Stealth fighters are kind of cool when they don't need to refuel every other turn. Black bombs are a great idea, but it's very situational. I mean, I never really used them outside of the mission you really get them in. And the black boats, honestly, I don't really use black boats because naval combat's still garbage, and it always has been. It never changes. Not counting Uzium in this, because you can't really use them in the campaign, but I will say they are a menace. Those who know will know. Moving on from units, I find the COs in this very interesting. Except the black hole ones. They removed Adder and Flak and gave us essentially worse versions of them with Jugger and Cole, respectively. And they relegated the past two to multiplayer, basically, and it sucks. It's kind of weird, though. Kindle's also just eh. Her power Urban Blight can be a little devastating if used right, though. But the other one, no, it kind of sucks. Von Bold is similar to Hawk, in a sense. I don't know, it's kind of weird. He has the same general idea going for it, but like he also has a long charge time as well as a dumb firepower boost. I don't know, it's weird. Javier's the CO that uses comm towers, though, and to his benefit. He uses them to become nigh invincible, but the problem with that is he's kind of useless on a map which has, like, one or none of them. Because, honestly, it's mixed on where the CO towers are going to be, for one, and how many are going to be on a map, but they don't really use them all that much, so Javier is cool in concept, but I don't really like it. But you can still use him otherwise. Jake isn't bad, being comparable to Andy with his Master of None type design. The biggest uptake being an advantage on plains, which is definitely a very common terrain type. Rachel's just okay, nothing too special I can note. Her best ability being her superpower, which acts like Sturm's Meteor Storm a bit, but honestly, I just always found her okay. She's not really special. But my personal favorite CO in Dual Strike is Grim. Grim can be described as Max with a gambling addiction. He's able to do high amounts of damage, but he risks getting completely wiped out because he has reduced defense while being attacked. So hope he can cover all your bases or the area. around you so that way you don't get completely washed. And Sasha is kind of a Colin wannabe, but I mean, she can be used pretty competently if you're winning the capture game, because her entire ability is surrounded around having properties. So I mean, yeah, that's fine. Which speaking of Colin and Sasha, I gotta talk about something that's very prevalent. And that's the difficulty. These two trivialize the game so much, it's not even funny. Colin proceeds to carry his broken abilities from the last game, but let's how dumb it is when combined with Sasha's power. Market Crash. Market Crash is an ability where the opponent's power meter is reduced based on how much money you have. So, imagine having $1 million a second with Colin, and the opponent can almost activate their dual strike, or even just their normal power, and poof, all gone. That's all thanks to...
Yes, money.
This combo's so stupid, you don't even need a dual strike. You just need to keep your opponent at check. Oh, right, yeah, dual strikes. I completely forgot. It's in the name of the game. This new mechanic's kind of cool. What it does is that when you're teamed up with another CO and both of your meters are full, you can use both of your superpowers in tandem with each other. Depending on who you have teamed up, this could be a game changer or actually a game ender if you're on the receiving end. Or just dies out like a wet fart and does next to nothing. I will say it's one of the more unique ideas for tag-based tactic stuff. Even in Fire Emblem, it just seems okay at best. Okay, man, I really need to stop mentioning Fire Emblem. I've mentioned it way too much now. And finally, after beating the campaign, you get probably one of my favorite modes in any game. This being called Combat. It's a gauntlet-style mode where you choose a CO with a set amount of units to your choosing based on cost. You engage in real-time combat, and it's very interesting. Every unit acts differently. They have their own range, firing type, whether it be like a straight line, a cone, something like that, and even their own vision, just like they do in the main game. Honestly, I think it'd be cool to see a full game of just this. But maybe I'm crazy. But I love crazy. Crazy is fun. All in all, Dual Strike is solid, but it does have a lot of issues, and they're very prevalent issues, all in all. But I'm glad that I can be one of those people who still enjoys it no matter what. I sure hope nothing bad happens to the series after, Oh, right. And our last stop is Days of Ruin. And to be honest, this is my Dual Strike. I'm very mixed on this one. I feel it has the best campaign, or at least story-wise, hands down, because, it actually tries to tell a story. It took a little bit to adjust to the more serious tone, but that doesn't really take too long. It's not embarrassingly serious, kinda. I don't know. The way I like to describe this game is that it, reminds me of Danganronpa, especially in terms of the constant talk of hope and, despair from the main character, who looks a lot like Makoto or Hajime, and it's also got a very anime aesthetic, the apocalypse. Yeah, that's about it. But outside of that, it really does tell a solid story about corrupt people and those who want to rise up from the ashes of the horrible tragedies. Honestly, my biggest problem with the story is that for some maps, 80% of it's taken up by dialogue. This is especially apparent on maps that are surprisingly easy. After you finish like a 3-minute cutscene, you take maybe like 15-20 days to finish a mission, then another 3-minute cutscene. It's really a nothing problem that only a weirdo like me would notice, but if you notice it, it's super noticeable. Another nothing issue I classify it as, at least, is the AI. The AI loves to fuck with you here, often placing certain units outside of the range of their hard counters, and it really gets on my nerves when I'm so close to finishing a map or reaching the turning point of a battle, This isn't helped by the fact that I'm an idiot and I will take the bait 90% of the time, but let's just pretend that I'm good at games for like a few seconds here. Speaking of battles, one major complaint I have with the campaign is map design. The design ranges from competently made to generally fun maps to absolute dog water. This includes the mission that absolutely broke me, Wayland Flies Again. Okay, alright. Side rant, please allow me to do this, because this is the only time I'm going to be able to talk about it. About this horrible travesty. Now, this mission has you going up against Wayland, this game's version of Eagle, as he's a beast with air unit. Meanwhile, you play as Will, who is your Master of None character, paired up with Tasha, who only has 6 units. Yeah, that's it. No bases, no infantry, just some rockets, anti-airs, and a couple tanks. You start out with a couple foot soldiers and a single anti-air in the middle of this canyon housing 4 cities, with every other base and factory or city behind you. One of the first problems with this is that Wayland starts out with a bunch of air units, which have massive movement range. And with his abundance of cities, he can make so many units quickly, even if it's expensive ones. They'll still be able to mess you up if you don't plan appropriately. The underlying issue with this is that you have to move your units all the way to the Grand Goddamn Canyon just to add on to everything. God, this mission infuriates me so much. This took me 103 days, which is my longest of any mission in any Advance Wars games. It's crazy. Okay. Rant over. Outside of that, most of the maps are just not as fun as others. Some of them being slow assaults on the enemy field or an area where you gotta play perfectly, or else you're not gonna win. But despite that issue, it doesn't mean the mechanics aren't fun. Like, CO's now having designated zones for their passives and power charge. The idea is there, and while I'm personally not a fan of it myself, I can definitely see where it's coming from. It's very situational. I'm also a fan of quite the few new units that the game introduces as well. Flares are a nice way to help out in Fog of War from a distance, much better than recons. We finally have another option. Anti-tanks are super fun because they're basically troll indirect units. I enjoy bikes as farther moving infantry. Gunboats acting as a one-hit wonder is very neat, but you gotta be careful. I love what they did to battleships, making them able to fire immediately after moving. Oh, that's such a godsend. Seaplanes are also fun and much better than stealth fighters. Honestly, one of the only units I'm not a fan of in this roster is the Dusters. They're okay for scaring fighter jets, but not much else I've seen. They do pitiful damage to, like, any other unit. Shoot, not even the ground units like infantries they do that much to. It's crazy to think about. I'd probably be better off using a battlecopter and anti-air. The sprite work is cool. I mean, I will say that. For a DS game, the music ranges from some absolute bangers to just, not really for me. But, I mean, I don't know. It's kind of hard to describe this game. It's very hit or miss. Maybe it's because I'm bad at the game, but in some areas I do feel that there needs to be some polish a little bit. I don't know, it's kind of weird, but maybe that's just me. I don't know. Outside of a few gripes with the few entries, I really do enjoy Advance Wars. I don't regret getting into this tactics journey, and shit, I really hope to eventually play something like Wargroove, which apparently is like Advance Wars, so that'll be fun. I don't have an intro. Or outro. What the hell? Intro? No. I don't have an outro this time. Advance Wars is cool. I've been on this video for months and I need to put it out at the time of recording. Thanks for doing the watch thingy. Okay, bye. I'm done.